guys, and welcome to Neecee Lexy. I am super excited to have with us a wonderful guest. Okay, this guest, I have been knowing her for the past 15 years. So this is the one and only Shinkay, Miss KK. All right, welcome to our live chat, Shinkay. How you doing?
I'm doing good, and thank you for having me here.
No worries, no worries. So today, me and Shinkay are gonna be doing a lot of girl stuff, chit chatting, talk about beauty secrets and what have you. Because Shinkay's actually been working in a lot of home remedy and kind of using organic tools and kind of trying to do some facial cleansing. She's gonna be talking all about that. But before we dive deeper, Shinkay is also a peer worker for the mental health community. She helps a lot of support our community by giving them assessments and whatnot, but I'm going to let her explain her role and actually kind of like dive deeper in the things that she does. Shinkay, please introduce yourself to our audience.
So I'm Shinkay. Now I work in community mental health program. My position is peer worker, and so it's a whole multidisciplinary team setting where you have so many different disciplines. So social work, nursing, psychiatrists, case managers, and then I, the peer worker.
Hmm.
We work together to help serve the adults with severe mental health. And so we do a lot of visits in the community, support with medications, support with accompanying to court, doctor appointments, the office of the public guardian trustee. So that's like all financial. But of course, this is all before pre-COVID. So now it's much different. But I mean, we are busy
Yeah.
helping out
So
clients.
I would consider you also guys are one of were essential worker, like frontline worker currently since the COVID hit. A lot of the business has been impacted. So how have you position been impacted with the whole COVID, like as a social mental health supervisor kind of thing?
Okay. Well, so in community mental health, so in our team, I was just temporarily laid off with pay. I I did I was involved in some redeployment,
Mm-hmm.
but it was supportive housing settings, and for a couple of months until I returned back.
Oh,
So in terms of paycheck, that wasn't affected.
mhm.
Um, but just many staff were laid off because I'm considered a contractor through St. Michael's. So
Yeah.
we were off, and so what happened was some programs that were considered more recreational, they
Mhm.
were closed down. Uh, there was one particular program called STAR. Uh, it was through the STAR Learning Center, which
Mhm.
ran at the Christian Resource Community Center, actually.
Mhm.
That was closed down due to funding and COVID and everything.
Yeah.
But for our team, it was still running, but it just changed a lot. So we didn't do as much visits in person. We did a lot of Zoom groups.
Yeah.
So in person client groups were off.
Yeah.
We run our groups through Zoom actually. So art groups, skills groups, bingo,
Mhm.
uh, morning check-ins, and then we do a lot of check-in calls with clients.
Yeah.
We were fortunate to get some donated tablets and phones
Well, that's incredible.
to give to some clients who don't have that access if they were willing to accept, which
Mhm.
most did, and just it's slowly increasing our visits.
Yeah.
So for this month, we're increasing social engagement visits maximum 20 minutes,
Mhm.
but with the condition that we're providing masks to clients, and if they don't wear it, visit is terminated.
That's
So,
true. Because you guys are always wanted to put like health of the people first. Obviously,
exactly.
being in that healthcare positions, you have to
Yeah.
also protect yourself and also protect the patients. And I like the fact that you guys are being more proactive and also like kind of creating a new normal. Like for example, I didn't know that you guys are actually now turning all the consultation to Zooming. because and then also like offering tablets for clients who don't have access to it, so that they can have access to those services even virtually. That's really
Exactly.
incredible. Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's exactly. And oh, we also actually, I'm going to try to remember as much as I can. So we actually had quite a lot of donated funds.
Hmm.
So a staff from another program called Steps. So by the way, I work on the focus team. So
Okay.
that's I work in that.
So how can we like as a society help with like with the initiative or actually continue supporting you guys? Like what other resources are available there that we can like, kind of as a community join and help?
So I guess if there are any, I would say in the field of mental health, I
Mhm.
would say helping out with if there are any donations for food banks, because a lot of my clients they need that help as much as they
Mhm.
can. Maybe not everybody accesses that, but that would be helpful. And I've worked in a shelter before, so
Mhm.
volunteering to be able to help make meals for a day once a month or something for those who live in shelter settings or boarding home settings. And I think the biggest thing that we can learn about is avoiding and eliminating stigma related to mental health because I because I always visit clients in some of the most impoverished or priority areas of need, and so there's quite certain areas of the city it's uh, uh, where it's a little bit more busier, and
Mhm.
so I think just that education and just being kind to some of the individuals who you may suspect that there's some mental health challenge. Just you know, kind acts, kind words, a smile.
Most
And
definitely.
if there is a yeah, and one of the stigma it's that they're all aggressive.
Yeah.
So if there is a fear of that, I mean, I understandable, but other than that, just a kind word, kind smile. I think that's important for our team,
That is,
for our clientele, because
yeah.
I see a lot. Because the ones I work with, they're very sweet, very a lot. Many are very pleasant. So just helping make
That's
a difference.
great info that you put it right there. And also, you do a lot of beauty secrets here and there. You develop your own skin regimen and work very like with organic content. Can you dive a little deeper on how what got you started to do that?
Okay. So what happened was when I used to start using products from like Sephora, Shoppers Drug Mart, etc. Sometimes I would find that they would maybe sometimes work, but
Mm-hmm.
then sometimes I found that it was very irritating for me personally, skin product wise,
Mm-hmm.
and just reading all those ingredients. It sounded like I was learning a new language every time because it's like one freaking ingredient had like 20, 30 damn letters in it, and I'm just like, what is this? And I was like, you know what? Let me learn. Um, and also, I also realized that in ancient Egypt, in ancient whatever, China, so and so,
Mm-hmm.
that when they used to take care of their skin, they would use things found in nature. So then there was no Sephora back then, so I'm just like, maybe that would be something to experiment. But
Yeah.
the first breakthrough for me was I was getting facial waxing or threading done, and
Mm-hmm.
I got a bunch of whiteheads on my face. Like they weren't large, but just really small ones.
Yeah.
And my brow lady, she recommended rose water. So I bought rose water and I used it for a week, and it went away. There was no sign that I had that whitehead. It was all gone. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna play around with
Mm-hmm.
ingredients and try this out and see how it goes. And so since then, I make my own like facial spray. Like I love using oils,
Mm-hmm.
um, hair stuff, uh, body care, like everything that I've just started working out with.
So
So,
what would you, because a lot of us are right now like, chilling at home because of the whole COVID-19 and we're still trying to look good on the camera. We do a lot of Zooming for our jobs. So what would you see like it's your makeup secret or get ready for Zoom conference in the morning?
Okay. Well, I won't spell out the ingredients or amounts or anything like
Like
that.
things that you could do to just kind of like make yourself look fresh and awakened.
Okay. Okay. So what I'm thinking of, so my ideas are coming up. Hopefully, we'll be launching soon. So, basically, making my own facial toner spray.
Yeah.
Um, so things like rose water, which is great for refreshing the skin, and removing excessive oil for all you oily skin people. Uh, uh, Never stops. And then witch hazel, which is also for oily skin, great for that. It's an
Hmm.
so um and then sometimes making my own, I guess you could call it serum moisturizer. So playing around with items like jojoba, almond oils, hyaluronic acid.
Yeah.
So I kind of use that together as a serum slash primer, and then
Mhm.
what else? So those are my basics, and then that's for every day,
Yeah.
and then those the routine that is more weekly. So using making masks
Yeah.
once a week, and I can't wait. I'm just so excited to talk about ingredients. But basically, using things like charcoal powder, green clay, white clay, manuka honey,
Yeah.
etc. You because based and basing my routine on the properties of the items, which I,
Yeah.
I'm glad to discuss later on. And so I just mixing some of the toner
Yeah.
with the clay to make a mask, and honey, manuka honey. So um,
And most of the stuff that you do is actually organic, like it's nothing chemically added or whatnot, right?
it's all plant based. So I try to eliminate as much fancy schmancy words as possible. So anything that sounds like sodium, this, that,
Yeah.
the other thing, I try to avoid it unless it's plant based again. So yeah, and organic if I can as much as possible, but definitely the key is, but yeah, the plant based.
That's incredible because I feel like a lot of times when you really like need to deal with some sensitive skin issues or kind of like making sure that it's not irritated or whatnot, always going with the organic route is always the best options.
Exactly.
Yeah, because sometimes when you there's like added chemicals in there, they always tend to be like very harsh on the skin, especially for me. Generally speaking, whenever I try and test new product, it either makes my skin dry or it just kind of like irritated and gets some rashes. And my face is super oily, as you can see.
Yes,
Super
but you're
oily.
looking good so far, unless you're trying to, I
It
don't
is
know,
naturally
mask
important.
something.
So, what are other tips for somebody who have super like me, for example, oily skin, and I wanted to minimize that and reduce it?
Okay, sure. So again, everybody's skin and body is different in terms of how they
Mhm.
react, what their skin allergies are, but
Yeah,
I'll talk about general info. So, let's talk ingredient wise.
yeah,
Rose water, very refreshing, can help with excessive sebum, which is the natural oil that we produce on our face.
hmm,
Witch hazel, that's an astringent. So, astringent meaning that it helps to clear and clean um, excessive oil.
yeah,
Some things are so for manuka honey. So honey itself, especially raw, the the less preserved the better. So there's regular honey, which is like that dark golden color, but there's
yeah,
raw honey, it has a clearish color, or manuka, which is from a which is from a special flower actually, and that's much more
yeah,
expensive. That's antibacterial. So if you have um, a lot of blackheads, whiteheads, things like that, it's great for that. In terms of oils, so this is one common myth, which I actually learned too. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people think that if you're oily skin, that you should never use oil on the skin, but it's not. That's not the case. It depends on, like I said, sometimes you just have to play around with it, but it
Yeah.
depends on the type of oil. So, for instance, castor oil is an astringent. It helps to clean excess. So, one product that I'm excited to hopefully share soon, it's
Yeah.
oil cleansers. So,
Yeah.
using oils to cleanse the face. So, castor oil is an astringent.
Mm-hmm.
Jojoba oil is the closest to our natural skin oil, so
Oh,
that's really good. Yeah, jojoba. It's the I believe texture wise, it's the closest, so it's a great one. Um, Tea tree, and yeah, tea tree oil is antibacterial, antifungal. So again, acne. But again, just taking the precautions that it's an essential oil. So essential oils are those that you have to use tiny amounts. You have to dilute it.
yeah.
Tea tree.
Will you be also doing some hair product regimen and things like that in your collection?
Hopefully, eventually, it would be interesting to explore that. Using some of the ingredients. But yeah, I'm more than willing. I'm always learning and playing around. I've started with skincare a lot.
Yeah.
I've done some hair stuff for myself. Um,
Yeah.
I've done some, and so yeah, I've done a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Back to ingredients. Like almond oil is really nice and moisturizing, and it's lightweight. So
Yeah.
the key for oily skin is using oils that are lightweight. So, for instance, yeah, almond, jojoba, which actually this tamanu, sea buckthorn. That's like those kind of lightweight oils. It's great to use.
That's a lot of great ingredients, and we look
There's
forward to see your, beauty care. What's it called? Regimen once it's all out and about. Because I know right now you're in the process of developing and trying to market
yeah,
it. So we're excited to see that happen. She will actually be coming, joining us later on once her product is launched, and then we can come back here again and do a little testing live on.
for sure, for sure.
That's incredible. So, what other hobbies have you picked up during the COVID?
Well, because again, so for a couple of months when I was off,
Mhm,
I again sometimes I just liked reading up about ingredients. I had started even earlier before that, but just further exploring.
mhm.
I was obsessed with watching food videos and recipes in March and April. My gosh,
Yeah.
yum! And
So you
then
must be that you're the secret chef, right?
kind of, yeah. I like playing around. Like I like watching things,
What's your
food.
favorite dish?
Holy crap, that's hard to say. Oh, because food is love.
Mm,
Uh, it's hard, but I like rices. Like if I had to choose one grain that would live for life, it's probably rice. Because you can do so much with rice. You can make it vegetarian. You can make it meat based. You can use spices. You can use veggies, fruits, which sounds funny. Maybe not all fruits, but like for example, cranberry and whatever, or raisin. You can do that with that.
yeah.
You can make it spicy, sweet,
Definitely. Rice with
everything.
a lot of variety of like concept
Yeah,
that you can turn out to. And also rice comes in so many forms. Like there is the biryani rice kinda, and then there's a grain one. Like there's so many forms of it, and I feel like you
exactly. Basmati
yeah,
and brown and wild rice, jasmine, which it's so fragrant. Uh, Long grain, like there's and the way you cook each type of rice is
yeah,
different. The taste is slightly different. Like there's so
yeah,
much to play around. Just like how I find cooking to be an art, my I find beauty products to be such an art because you're designing things according to what you want it to look like, what you want it to be, what your personal skin
Mm-hmm.
situation is like, whether you're oily, you're dry, sensitive, uh, what else? Like, yeah, whether you're having oily skin or wrinkles or
Yeah.
scars, or designing according to what you need.
Yeah. And also, just to mention to the people that don't know, that Shinkay is actually a great editor. She is one of my editors. Yeah. So, how did you come about, kind of like have the idea to know to be more of an entrepreneurial spirit? Have you always, like, as a kid, you thought you thought yourself as an entrepreneur, or did you kind of develop it as an adult?
I think I just kind of thought of it as an old, young adult. Like when I was younger, I never said, "Oh, I want my own business,"
Mm-hmm.
but just learning about things and seeing how I can bring knowledge into a certain field. That always intrigued me.
Yeah.
So, for instance, and I've used it in times of struggle, personal struggle. So
Mm-hmm.
times where I found it difficult to find a job on my own in retail, or I faced that struggle to go out and apply
Mm-hmm.
for a job, or I just didn't have that courage
Yeah.
and like the experience, and I felt those when I lacked that experience or skills at the time. And then I thought, okay, maybe, which this is true, by the way, I actually used to, I started going into babysitting for families, starting to do tutoring. And then I tutored from as young as kindergarten all the way up to grade 12, mostly grade 11. I did some grade 12.
Mm-hmm.
And so doing all subjects, math and English and um, science.
Mm-hmm.
I always enjoyed interacting with students because I loved working with students and you know
Mm-hmm.
being involved in the helping field. So I would say I always had a strong interest in education,
Mm-hmm.
social work, healthcare, any of those fields I really liked, and I think those
That's amazing.
interests manifested themselves through the babysitting and the child
Yeah.
care and all that.
That's amazing because from your stories you shared with me, your experience being a babysitter, being a tutor, I feel like there's so
Yeah,
much passion going behind it that has to do what you do while you do, but then now like kind of
yeah,
it's like why you picked that route.
yeah.
And then also I wanted to know like what was some of the hardest or difficult things when you decided to be like, you know what, I want to babysit or I want to tutor? What was some of the gap that you have reached and how did you overcome it?
Okay, good question. So for tutoring, so well, number one, I was scared. Like, what if I forgot my material? Because I ain't about to tutor, and I go and I'm charging $20 an hour, and I sit there clueless as shit. Sorry about the language. It's just let's spice it up a bit here. That especially grade 12, I will say. Um, number two
You gotta
was
know your stuff because the students
yeah,
are
that's
relying on you.
important. So no, I used to be afraid. I'm like, okay, am I confident enough? Number two, family dynamics. So hopefully working with adults who weren't, where I could get along with them, with the parents, and figure out how to help the child and
Yeah,
to explain my skills and experience, and also tutoring according to to the students' learning ability, learning styles. That's one of the hardest things about teaching. A lot of
yeah,
people, I find that teachers are unfortunately very undermined with their abilities. They're not they're not as respected as they should be in terms of, I find, like salary wise, their
mm,
role, their profession. Sometimes I think they need more of that recognition. But yeah, it's not easy to tutor because a lot of people, most people will, majority of people will have an expertise, But when it comes to teaching it or explaining it,
Mm.
they would not be able to pull it off, period. They would lose their shit if they tried. Because I've seen people who, actually, one of my younger brothers, he's a year younger than me.
You
And
have to be patient if you're teaching because
yeah,
like
exactly, patient.
yeah.
He knew, like, he did mechanical engineering technology. And when other younger brothers would ask for help, he's like, you just do this, that. Like, he knew how to do it, but he couldn't explain it. So that's a whole different skill area that many people can't pull off.
Yeah.
So it was hard. I will say, just trying to learn to adapt. But eventually, like most of my students, I was really good.
Mm-hmm.
For babysitting, I would say, like, I've had younger siblings, so I have an 8-10 year difference with my youngest sibling. So I was always involved in that growing up.
Mm.
And of course, I've learned about discipline and all that through the years. I was very different from when I was 14 to now, 15 years later. Uh, and so for children, yeah, learning how to relate to them and how to discipline, because especially when you have parents, the ones who have really high expectations, or those who kind of have a bit of that attitude where they're kind of like, oh, like, you didn't do this and that. I was not about to deal with some of that nonsense, but unfortunately, even in my career, I have to sometimes work with family members and of the client, and so but it's an important part of the role.
Yeah.
But eventually, like, there's one family that I worked with I've known them almost, actually, this November will be 8 years since I've known them. So that they were the longest that I've ever been with. And, I eventually, at first it was hard, I tell you. At first,
But you
oh,
gotta dive your feet into the water and kind of get used to it and kind of
yeah, and oh man, getting challenged.
yeah.
I still remember the pillow fight days, and you're the worst babysitter ever. Mommy's gonna fire you. This is like long ago. Oh man, and I used to actually, I felt bad. Like, I would take it personally. Like, oh
Yeah.
man, like, what if? And then I realized, you know what? I'm gonna still stand my ground and be warm and firm. And then eventually it stopped, and it turned very well.
But
Sometimes,
it seemed to me, sorry to cut you off, it seemed to me that being a babysitter and being a teacher is kind of, you have to have similar skills because you have to be super patient, but also you are trying to raise somebody and teach them different ethics on how to go about and become as an individual. So that's whole kind of like intertwined, and the fact that you kind of work in both field is kind of it works in your advantage, if you say that.
right? And I actually have to do it in my role right now. Sometimes I'm explaining something to a client, which is not that this isn't that often, but sometimes it can.
Yeah.
Trying to provide psychoeducation. So psychoeducation is just a fancy word for um, helping clients or those that we work with learn about something. So it can be nutrition, it can be health and well-being, it can be anything. So I've done a lot of that, and it's not always easy. So
So what would you say, like, you know, as a university student always joke around, they're like, oh, there's some classes that I took, like, it never actually benefited me, but what would you say was like one of the course that you took in undergrad that today is actually have a bigger impact on you?
a class that impacted me, okay.
Yeah.
So there's quite a bit. Well, there's psychotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
There was hmm, there was quite a bit, because, like, so courses like um, history of human migration, or, well, that was one, but history of European sexuality. That was an elective course, by the way. That was
Yeah.
not, and uh, that it helped me learn about. So, especially when it comes to views and ideas, how there's always all these different ideas, but how um, how different views can be conflicting and clashing, but how there's no negativity there. That's the beauty of many uh, many disciplines like humanities, history, world religion, philosophy, is that there's so many different ideas and
Yeah.
no one is really wrong, but it's just like it it helps me to look at things differently. So and speaking of looking at things different ideas differently. So for instance, I work in community mental health, and so one sometimes many common ideas, and I've fallen into being guilty myself,
Yeah.
is that this person just doesn't want to talk because sometimes maybe we think that they're mean or something. We always like to attribute to personal characteristics and qualities, but after learning, actually even at work, one of the psychologists, she
Mhm.
used to do skills training with us, we were learning about trauma informed care, which I also learned through psychotherapy course, slightly touched on it, how a person's trauma affects the way how they relate to others. And so it's like, that's interesting. And then I realized, I'm like, yes, because a person's life, a story shapes their views, and and it writes a script for them, what they've seen and what they've learned. And so sometimes that little scope and bubble that they've been living in for so long, sometimes it's challenging for them to go beyond and do something. And that script has taught them how to relate to others. And so that made me realize, oh, that's interesting. Like I didn't think about that, and now I always use that in
That's super important.
my background, like work every day. Or for instance, when someone does something that's a little bit challenging, sometimes I don't even call it challenging. Sometimes I find it amusing or interesting. Not laughing at their face, obviously. Sometimes I just say that's interesting that they did this, and kind of looking for the positive side. So I'd be like, yeah, wow, they're creative to be able to pull that off, or wow, like they're quite interesting for that.
Yeah.
It's sometimes just finding the interesting sides to everything, or as how I like to call it, how my clientele, I call it the spice of life. Everyone is so different and unique. They bring their skills and areas of need are so different,
Yeah.
and so it's taught me that. So, like,
That's incredible.
definitely that.
I love the fact that you're able to use some of the materials and the content that you learned from undergrad and applied. For me, I felt like when I took my leadership class, I actually that was like the first time where I went into class. I was a health sciences student, but then I took this class as an elective. And when I went in there, the professor in our first week of lectures, he was like, "Oh, there's not a lot of women in the CEO levels." And the first thing that I really noticed was the Pepsi CEO at the time. She was like one of the only women that was mentioned during the lecture, and then
Mhm.
there was other three or four more in there, including Oprah. And I was like, wow, like if this is a business class and there's a lot of female businesses in it, but the C levels are lacking for us, then I started investigating more. I started watching podcasts and TED Talks, and I got even more obsessed with the ideas like why there's no enough female CEOs out there, and that's why like my sparks in business even like grew further. And even before that, the entrepreneur mind was still there, but now understanding that there was no so much a lot of us within the gap, so I was like, okay, I want to be a part of that. So to change that. And the second course that I took was also I took a communication course. And through the communication course, I was able to learn how to do how to understand how the media works and how to like the copyright the message. And that's why I also reach out to you in regards to the editing, because sometimes you can write a beautiful piece, but if that beautiful piece is not written correctly, it would not
Oh
get
yeah,
across, right?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
So
I
definitely there's so many great things that you can learn from a classroom and transform into real life actions. And I like the fact that some of the courses that you took actually helps you in your day-to-day jobs and
Right. No, that's true. The most, you can have all the knowledge in the world.
Mhm.
You can have all the skills in the world. The key is being able to how to communicate that info.
Yeah,
So, for instance, I'll talk about both of our fields. I'll start
yeah,
with you first.
yeah,
So, like how you write blogs. But if you write blogs in a way that people can't understand, or it's not interesting, or it's not it doesn't have some creativity, it's
yeah,
not going to be entertaining. It's kind of drab and blah.
yeah.
Now in my field, so when I in another so one example in my area is when I facilitate groups, which I've done quite a bit at work, and when I'm explaining something to someone, and it will vary with every individual, right? As well. So when I provide education or when I'm facilitating a group, I need to talk about concepts in a way that's easy to understand and
Hmm.
considering their capacity and where they are at the moment. Because if I don't cater to that, it's going to be useless to them because they don't understand. Part of communication, it's not just one way. One, the first, the sender. So let's compare. So there's a sender and a receiver.
Yeah.
So the one who sends the information has to give has to send info or communicate in a way that the receiver understands and can reflect upon it. Now this is effective communication skills.
Yeah.
They have to be able to understand, reflect upon it, and communicate back to the sender. So sorry, this is all fancy-ish.
That's like, no, that's actually very important. Even like for me, as I told you earlier, being in a kinesiology field, sometimes when we are in the lab talking and discussing among our colleagues, we have language that a normal person won't understand. And then if we're
Exactly.
talking about VO2 max, ECG, and all that stuff, if I want to go and explain that to a regular person, they'd be like, "What is that?" And then we would have to be like, "Oh, the Wingate test and all that stuff." They'd be like, "What do you mean?" And we're like, "Okay, get 30 minutes is set yourself in a bicycle and then run as fast as you can, and then we're going to try to measure your breathing." That's how simple as it is. So sometimes you
Exactly.
have
Exactly.
to change the language around for people to understand, and you
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah. And it's okay sometimes if the first time it doesn't work out,
Mhm.
and that the first time you that they couldn't understand, then the second time you attempt again with a different style to it. It
Yeah,
reminds me of like tutoring, right? If I can't keep getting mad if I'm explaining something the same using the same technique over and over again to a student because it's just it doesn't work for them. I have to find another way to do it. And so I've had to manipulate and be flexible with how to explain a concept. This is part of the beauty of working with people. I think
mhm.
everyone needs to learn this skill. We think it's only in teaching and babysitting or working with people directly, but it's in every field. Whether you're in digital marketing, whether you're a doctor, uh,
Mhm.
an accountant, a a credit professional, in
Mhm.
retail, in every field, communication skills are so important. We always say that we have strong communication skills on a
Yeah,
resume, but many people really don't.
yeah,
I think people, and it's because people have messed that up. Thing because there's oral skills, communication skills. They're not the same. Communication is not just being able to speak English, for instance. It's
yeah,
not the language. It's how you're able to work with others, how you collaborate with others.
yeah.
So there's a
That
lot
is
of stuff that we can go
that
on
is
and
so true.
on.
Because even as a digital marketer, sometimes I find myself when I'm doing consultation, I would explain a material to somebody, be like, I'll explain a product, and they'd be like, what is that? So I have to kind of explain it or use some everyday analogy or relate it
Exactly.
back to their businesses and making sure, be like, okay, since we're in this field, use some keywords and kind of trying to help them understand. And I can literally explain one product 100 times differently depending on the niche of the industry it is, but it's the same thing.
Exactly. Exactly. Or even it remind yeah, like or even being a babysitter for
Yeah,
discipline, for
yeah,
instance. my technique is it's going to be very different with the 14-year-old compared to the 5-year-old.
Yeah.
I have the same expectation.
Yeah.
So I've learned a lot of things over the years, and which is key.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's so much I can talk about with that, which maybe
Well,
can be explored later on between ourselves. So
awesome. Thank you so much, Shinkay. So once you have launched your product, where can we find it? Like, where's your social media handle? How do you have a Facebook page or anything that we can reach out and see the mass launching of your product?
so that's still in the works.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we'll keep working on it and keep you posted when everything's ready.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, so definitely I will be whenever she's ready and she wants to write me, I will be including that information down in the description below. And thank you so much, Cynthia, for being a part of our talk show today. I felt it's not a talk show, but our life interview discussions where we interview entrepreneurs from around the world. I felt your input today was very relevant because we came in here talking about beauty and then talking about mental health, and we ended with communications as being the key factor of all. And yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
thank,
Exactly.
thank you so much for being here today. And I will
No,
keep you posted and make sure do come back to our live show when once you.
yes, 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 of course. Uh, I know where you're at, so I can always track you down if I need to, hopefully. And now it's quarantine, so now you're not going anywhere. So, but yeah, I'm more than happy to come back and
Yeah.
explore and discuss more.
All right. Thank you so
Thank
much. And
you.
for our viewers at home, we wish you all the best and enjoy your long weekend. And this discussions will be aired on Thursday this month, obviously. So I look forward to seeing you guys all. Have a good day and stay blessed. Shinky, once again, thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.